Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hi, I'm Willie Nelson, and I urge you to support the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act to regulate marijuana and restore industrial hemp. This initiative will end adult marijuana prohibition and let our criminal justice officers focus limited resources on real criminals and not on marijuana users like me. OCTA will also allow farmers to grow hemp for fuel, fiber, and food, to create jobs and help our economy. Please support OCTA. Thank you.
You're watching Coin Local 6 at 6.
Hi, I'm Willie Nelson, and I urge you to support the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act to regulate marijuana and restore industrial hemp.
Oregon's marijuana initiative gets some star power from one of the world's biggest pot smokers. Activists are hoping that Willie Nelson's celebrity will help them collect more than 87,000 signatures to get the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act on the November ballot. He is a country legend, and he got his own Oregon medical marijuana card. Now he's asking all Oregonians for their support.
Well, Casey Montoya has been following this story. I think a question comes up. How can Willie Nelson get an Oregon medical marijuana card when he doesn't live here?
Good question, and you may be surprised to find out that it is actually legal. In June of 2010, the state granted access for people to all get their own medical marijuana cards. All you have to do is live here in the U.S. And now the supporters of this bill are hoping that his superstar celebrity will help them get this on the ballot. This is actually the first celebrity to be endorsing legalizing pot. Willie Nelson could be the world's most famous pot smoker, and he doesn't hide it.
Let our criminal justice officers focus limited resources on real criminals and not on marijuana users like me.
Nelson is using his fame to help marijuana activists in Oregon get enough signatures to put the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, or ACTA, on the November ballot.
His endorsement is a big help for us, and it's definitely raised the awareness of our initiative out there.
Paul Stanford owns THCF Medical Clinics, a chain focused on helping qualified patients find doctors to prescribe medical marijuana cards. Stanford says he's helped other members of Nelson's band get their cards, and after an incident with police in Arizona a few weeks ago, Nelson decided it was time to get his own card, but it wasn't his first.
He'd had a card previously through us in Hawaii, but he let that lapse, so we've renewed his Hawaii card and got him an Oregon card in Washington and Nevada.
Stanford says Nelson has chronic pain from a broken back that got him medically discharged from the Air Force. He also suffers from carpal tunnel syndrome. In this message gaining momentum online, Nelson lists the other reasons to support ACTA.
OCTA will also allow farmers to grow hemp for fuel, fiber, and food, to create jobs and help our economy.
According to a Harvard economist, legalizing and taxing marijuana would generate hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Nelson is one of nearly 56,000 patients currently in the Oregon medical marijuana program.
Thank you very much.
Well, it hasn't had an impact on signature gathering yet, but they are very hopeful that it will. Right now, they have 55,000 signatures. They need 87,000, but they say they're going to collect 130,000 to make sure they're all valid, and they have until July 6th to do that. Kelly?
But I want to just put this out or think about real quickly is we want people to think about the realities of alternative energy, helping the land, helping the farmer, a green economy, alternative energy, all of the buzzwords that the political system keeps throwing at us but has no substance behind it. We want people to think and consider the identity and the realities of industrial hemp as an alternative energy solution to the problems that plague this planet. Hemp will help the farmer, it will save the farmer, it will create an environment, a fresh air environment that is healthy for this planet. Industrial hemp. We're not talking about marijuana. This is about industrial hemp. This is about helping the farmer and all of the things that hemp can do. And if nothing else, remember, it makes fresh oxygen for a carbon monoxide filling sky, and it does it on an annual basis. It's a renewable energy, and it sustains us. It was the largest cultivated plant It was the largest cultivated crop on this planet up until the 1880s. Then around the discovery of oil, because hemp could do everything that oil can do and more, and do it safely without pesticides, without attacking and destroying the land. They outlawed marijuana a long time ago, but it was the hemp that they were after because the hemp could sustain an alternative economy. Thank you. So please think about it. Think about it. Think about it and do what makes sense. All right. Give us this day our daily yeses. Yes to life. Yes to living. Yes to caring. Yes to giving. Yes to creating. Yes to thinking. Yes to clarity. Yes to balance. Yes to being. Yes to seeing. Yes to yeses. Give us this day our daily yeses. Chaos, confusions. Confusions, chaos. Desperations, despairs. Despairs, desperations. Program, belief. Belief, program. Manipulated minds. Minds manipulated. Reactions, behaviors. Behaviors, reactions. Fearful thinking. Thinking fearful. Inside. Outside. Altering thought. Thought altering. Forgetting medicine. Medicine forgetting. Clear thinking. Thinking clear. Coherent. Coherence. Coherency. Coherent. Prayers given. Given prayers. Peace and love. Love and peace. Created realities. Realities created. Whatever sees. Sees whatever. We do. Do we? Give us this day our daily yeses. Yes to yeses. Yes to seeing. Yes to being. Yes to balance. Yes to clarity. Yes to thinking. Yes to creating. Yes to giving. Yes to caring. Yes to living. Yes to life. Give us this day our daily yeses.
they spent. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for him. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, time for hemp! Yeah!
This is a compilation piece of Time for Hemp featuring the best of with Willie Nelson, Alan Bach, and Timothy Leary. Hosted by Casper Leach.
Millions of farmers all over this country had been losing their farms at the rate of 1 million a year.
What, acreages or 1 million farms?
Farmers. You know, at one time there was 8 million working farmers in this country, American family farmers. Now we're down to probably less than 2 million. The big corporations, it's the old story of the big ones eating the little ones. And they're running the small farmer off the land. And when that happens, the farm town closes down. The first thing, the hospitals and the schools go. And then what happens is all these people are now unemployed. They move on to the next big city, which causes the same kind of problems in that city. I think that all the homelessness, alcoholism, insanity, all these things that we experience, unemployment in our country, can be traced back to the first time that the first American farmer was forced off his land when he was unable to make a living off of 100 or 200 acres of land. And the reason for it is because they have asked him, demanded or made it necessary that he raise a crop below what it costs him to raise it. Okay. He loses money on, for instance, if he, just example figures, for instance, if he were to, it costs him $2 to, or $3 to plant and raise and harvest a bushel of corn, and if he only gets $2.50 for that at the market, then he's losing. Right. And this is an accepted practice in American agriculture today, for the farmer to get less than what it costs him to grow. And they keep trying to justify it with subsidies and whatever. But the American farmer would rather go out here and work hard and make his money the hard way, the way he knows how to do it. Give him an acre, let him do what that acre can do. Let him do it without all the pesticides, without all the chemicals. Don't put his yield so low, his money so low, that he has to use every piece or every gallon of pesticides that he can find to pour on that acre of land in order to get enough money out to almost break even. Mm-hmm. They have forced him into this position. There are even banks who will not loan you any money at all unless you agree to use X amount of pesticides and chemicals on your land.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. Because they know that the only way you can make your payment is if you get so much off of that acre, and the only way you can get that much off of that acre is to keep pouring the chemicals to that 1 acre.
Wow. Now, when did you first become aware of hemp as a cash crop?
A couple of years ago, I read a book I think that a lot of us have read by now called The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and it was in that book there was a reprint of an article. The one thing in that book that I saw that could not be argued with was an article that came out in 1938 edition of Popular Mechanics magazine, February edition, if anybody wants to go check it out, that said a new $1 billion crop for the farmers.
Do you think that farmers today would be receptive to growing hemp as a cash crop? Because of all the propaganda we've heard over the years, there are so many people now who believe that it's the evil weed. But we kind of figure it, because of all the products that it can create, that it could be a solution.
Well, definitely. I think most people that I talked to had no idea, just like me, that hemp and marijuana was the same thing. We were ignorant of that fact. Also, we were ignorant of the fact that hemp could be used as food. It can be used as clothing. The first Levi's in this country were made from hemp. The first Bibles were printed on hemp paper. The Declaration of Independence, the first 2 copies of this was printed on hemp paper. People don't know that.
Now, when you're out there working with the farmers side by side, do you have an opportunity to witness ways that we, people who are not involved with the farm communities on a daily basis, those of us who are driving to and from work and stuck in our offices, what can we do to help the farmer overcome this misery? They've been together as our backbone forever.
There's a great plan that just I became aware of it here a year or so ago, last year in fact. The farmers have come up with this idea themselves. It's called parity giving. For instance, if you're a rich guy, you got millions of dollars, you want to do something for the poor, the hungry people, you would buy direct from the farmers, pay them a certain price. For instance, for corn, if you buy $1 million worth of corn from the farmers and pay them $3 a bushel, whatever the market price is, then you would be able to write off, you give it to the hungry, you give it to the poor people. Then you would write off what is considered a parity price or a fair market price which would be in the neighborhood of around $7. So you would get to charge, you buy it for $3 and get to write off $7. So this would be a great benefit not only to the guy with money who wants to help, to the farmer who gets his product sold, and also to the people out there who are hungry, who needs the food. It's really ridiculous for people to be starving to death on this planet when there's a lot of food available.
Paul, this is for you if you're out there. Paul wanted to hear this song. It's called Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Russian Roulette. And it's about, well, you know, America's always posturing and posing and saying, you know, those people over there, they want to get a bomb. They want to get nuclear stuff going in their own country, you know, whether it's Iran or whoever it is. And at the same time, America is the only country in the world that's ever used an atomic weapon. And it did it preemptively on a civilian population twice. They did it in Hiroshima and they did it in Nagasaki. So this is called Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Russian Roulette. They dropped the bomb in 45 to win the World War. No one had ever seen such a terrible sight before. The world watched with eyes wide to see where it would lead as the politics of power passed around the seed. It was a time to remember that we never can forget to play in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Russian Roulette. They arose like the saviors of our modern human race, with radiation halos that hung above their face, with the key to the sure cure and treatment of our ills, a hot shot of cobalt, a pocket full of pills, speaking always of the enemy who lurked across the seas while they moved in among us like a carrier disease. Holed up in the harbors, hidden secretly away, the warheads and the submarines await to make their play, and the military masterminds improve on their designs, while the soldiers get all doped up and stumble through the lines, and the leaks in the water get carried by the tide. They call it national security, I call it attempted homicide. Governors and statesmen on congressional pay, quick to please the hand that feeds, careful what they say. They call out experts to assure us and to wave their magic wands. This is the power of the future, they say, and the future marches on, and then they gather up their favors and political gains while the spills fill the rivers and settle in the plain. I know the minds behind them, they are riddled full of holes. They are not to be trusted with their hands at the controls. Their eyesight is twisted with the glory of their careers. Heaped praise of flattery is music to their ears, and to listen to them talk about how it hasn't happened yet, it's like playing Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Russian Roulette.
Yes, I. Man called Casper from Arizona, Hopi land. How you feeling, Portland? Rhythm, please. This is how we do it in Hopi land. Native peoples in the house, say yeah. Sometimes them come by, but only the best to come around. Jump, jump. The children come, they come and they back to Hopi land. The children come, they come and they back to Hopi land. They come by bus, sometimes them come by, but only the best to come and play down in Hopi land. But tell a friend, a reggae man we bring, Bob and Nest Tamale, and my heart is still king. Shock we shaka, we sing, we are sting. Sometimes we DJ BC, sometimes we sing. Back in Hopi land where my guac came from. High and I miss that slim belly one bit. Just for on from the Kirkhope's body. They live and I direct me coming in our show body. The children come, they come back to Hopi land. The children come, they come and they back to Hopi land. They come by bus, sometimes them come by but only the best to come around. Jump, jump. The children come, they come and they back to Hopi land. The children come, they come and they back to Hopi land. They come by bus, sometimes them come by but only the best to come and play down in Hopi land. A dedicated cultural connection. The movies up in the dance, yes, the mom. This is the way we call my music, along. A reggae that's just running in the season. There's no excuse, no better reason. I'm messing up Portland, my only mission. So listen up, no matter why me in the session. We live and on the record from the boom, boom, come. The children come, they're coming back to Hopi land. The children come, they're coming back to Hopi land. They come by bus, sometimes them I come by, but only the best to come around and jump. The children come, they're coming back to Hopi land. The children come, they're coming back to Hopi land. They come by bus, sometimes them I come by, but only the best to come and play down in Hopi land. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm on stanchion, positive lyrics in the maximum, yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And Babylon don't like that, no. Mighty 602 band in the house one time, right? Let me hear you say, hell yeah! Watch me. In the dance when everyone once again listen up, no matter what my name I come every time. Mighty 602 when every come every time. The mic, the lyric, that my only weapon. Well, that's the way me try to be, so come have some fun. Mic upon the lyric, every only weapon. And when every dance and offer, I'ma listen up, no matter what I come to get. I get them come, they come about to Hopi land. I get them come, they coming about to Hopi land. They come by bus, sometimes them come by, but only the best to come around. The children come, they come about to Hopi land. The children come, they coming about to Hopi land. They come by bus, sometimes they have a come by, but only the best to come to play down the Hopi land. Yeah, 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 yeah. Quiet.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you right now a champion of truth and liberty. I think one of the most honest politicians we've had in my lifetime. U.S. Congressman Dennis Kucinich is here to speak to you. Let's hear a warm welcome. Give your love to Dennis Kucinich. Hello, Seattle!
On this day, in this place of great beauty, we celebrate the beauty of nature, and I'm also here to celebrate the wondrous nature of you. The presence that we have here today binds us as a community. It empowers us. It strengthens us. We must become visible en masse if we're going to bring about the change that we want in the society. And when we do that, we extend our reach. We bring about new possibilities. And the creative spark that births action can usher in a new world. We have to say to America, open up, America. Show yourself. Time for mass action. This is why and how recent movements for freedom in Tunisia and Egypt gained momentum. This is how Gandhi cast off the British Empire. This is how America's suffragettes ended up getting for women the right to vote. This is how Dr. Martin Luther King's March on Washington became a pivotal moment in the civil rights history of this country. People become visible. They go to the streets. They linked arms. They marched. They sang, "We shall overcome." They walked the uplit path of social and economic justice. People have been on this path, and it's time for us to begin to walk that path too. People then marched to glory, but not for themselves, but for the benefit of generations to come. We gather here today in a common determination for change. A sense of commonality of purpose awakens. A purpose, a sense of awareness grows. The moment arrives to exercise a new commitment, to cast off an old order of things. This same awareness brought America's founders to write the Declaration of Independence and to proclaim a new order follows. Today it is not a financial deficit that will bring America down. It is a deficit of public action. When people discover what happens when one person determines to make a difference and then merges with the many like-minded, it becomes visible. New possibilities unfold, and a new order follows. Now, Seattle, you understand this, because in 1999, Seattle hosted the World Trade Organization rallies, and Seattle was the host of the Teamsters and the Turtles marching arm in arm, not too far from this area, demanding, once and for all, that we have enforceable workers' rights, human rights, environmental quality principles in all of our trade agreements. They marched and they chanted and they said, not only we shall overcome, but solidarity forever, solidarity for workers. The Seattle WTO cast light upon the workings of the WTO. Seattleites, union members, trade activists helped spark a worldwide awareness, that workers had to have rights, and that there had to be environmental quality principles. And it was the people of Seattle who identified that child labor, slave labor, and prison labor had to be in trade, that prohibitions on that had to be in trade agreements. Seattle brought that forward. You kept that alive. You've nurtured it. Large, intentional gatherings like this one can be a catalyst for powerful change. But we have to be prepared, as George Bernard Shaw once wrote, to dream things that never were and ask why not. And let us dream about the America that we want. Let us give our dreams some firmament. Let our dreams and our thoughts become words. Let the words become deeds. Let our deeds become action. Let our actions build a new America and a new world. Seattle, you shook the world once. Can you shake it again? I ask you. Are you ready here, Seattle, to declare once and for all that it's time for America to end the wars in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and Libya? Are you ready to do that? Yeah. Are you prepared to demand that our troops be brought home? Yeah. Are you prepared to demand that America end its worldwide military presence? Yeah. Are you prepared to demand that America must lead the way to nuclear abolition? Are you prepared, Seattle, to demand that we have to repeal the Patriot Act? Are you prepared, Seattle, to demand that government spying, eavesdropping, and wiretapping of law-abiding citizens must end? That our sisters' right to privacy be protected and decisions about women's reproductive health be made between a woman and her doctor? Are you prepared, Seattle, to say that our brothers and sisters who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered have all full rights, including the right to marry? Are you prepared, Seattle, to demand the decriminalization and legalization of marijuana and demand hospitalization, not incarceration, for those with drug problems? Are you prepared to demand not-for-profit health care for all? Yes! Education for all? Yes! Retirement security for all? Yes! Jobs for all? Yes! Are you prepared to rescue our federal government from corporate interests by calling for a constitutional amendment which establishes only public financing of federal elections? Are you prepared for that? Are you prepared to summon the energy to rescue our planet, to protect our air, our water, and our land from further exploitation by demanding an end to drilling the earth, fracking the earth, cracking the earth, and an end to the poisoning of our seas and our skies, and to make sure that we end this carbon-based solution and bring forward a rapid transition to an environmentally friendly, socially responsible green economy? Seattle, this day, here and now, you, through your responses, have voiced what I would call the Seattle Declaration. Let the sound of your voice today be heard wide and far. Let your affirmations give birth to new actions, a new nation, and a new world. Let your voice once again cause America to march. Let your voice once again cause America to sing. Let your voice cause America to seek new freedoms. Let your voice call America to seek a newer world. Ours is a restless quest for freedom. We know wars make us less free. We know fear makes us less free. Social and economic insecurity makes us less free. If it is for freedom's sake that we gather, so then let us be for freedom's sake that we act courageously, because it is our desire for change that carries extraordinary power to become more than we are, better than we are, forged in the human heart, ignited by love and a passion for transformation. Our common unity, our common purpose, and our common action can carry the power to change everything. This is the power of human unity. This is the power of our oneness. Feel it. Own it. Act upon it, Seattle. Thank you.
U.S. Congressman Dennis Kucinich, give a hand.
Well, what is cannabis? Cannabis, of course, is a medicine.
I think it's important to say that no medication is going to work for everybody all the time.
It's a specific for migraines, it's a specific for seizures. The take on the plant is that it's symbiotic with the human.
If you can get something that's natural, that has literally zero side effects.
It works as almost a ubiquitous inhibitor of a lot of systems in the brain.
The science is absolutely clear. The pharmaceuticalization of cannabis is just beyond the horizon.
I think it's easier for men to come out and say they support it because women have a lot more on the line. You know, if they're mothers, then they have their kids on the line.
So I tried it, and at first, it freaked me out. I had a few panic attacks.
We know that cannabis can prevent Alzheimer's, and if it can reduce all these ailments and keep your stress level low, that adds years to your life before you're even sick.
And so the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate fascist elite SOBs vilified the cannabis plant.
We're all grown up now. We're not in the closet anymore. We don't give up what you think. We smoke marijuana.
But once you just let go with it and just be, it does so many things.
This consciousness opens the doors to perception, expands consciousness, and puts you in a receptive state.
I like to say when I give lectures, I start off by saying I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
Part of what we're doing with Oregon NORML is trying to maximize the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act and try to help the patients that truly need the medicine.
America's ready for a change in the marijuana laws. We're reached critical mass to change this critical mass.
Let's hope we can all live together in peace and harmony, love, and legalize marijuana, for God's sake.
Come on up here, my brother man, all the way from Kentucky. To tell you some truth, this guy's been doing this longer than HempFest has been doing this. Give him some warm love.
Thank you very much, friend. Hey, thank you all. Listen, I hope you all remember that the theme of this HempFest is "This One's for You, Jack." This one is for Jack Hare. For a lot of you young folks out there, if it wasn't for Jack Hare, you wouldn't be here at this HempFest, because there wouldn't be a HempFest. Jack Hare is responsible for it. I'm going to take a couple of minutes to pay tribute to my friend Jack Hare, who passed this past several months ago. Here's my tribute to him. Jack Hare is a social and philosophical tsunami, the ripples from whose splash will forever grace the shores of human consciousness in every freedom-loving nation. He is the grand champion of we the people, and the natural cycle in our battle with the synthetic subversion which threatens the very concept of the sovereignty of each human individual. Jack's tireless efforts to eliminate the facts about cannabis have furnished freedom fighters everywhere with the tools of knowledge with which to resist the fascism of the corporate state as it seeks to subject everyone to its economic bottom line. Jack recognized that cannabis is a gateway to existentialism, which enlightens our existence and is the basis of our freedom of choice. He also recognized the miraculous healing powers of this herb, and many sick and dying people have found comfort in its use after reading his wonderful manifesto, "The Emperor Wears No Clothes." I am one of them. Jack Hare's grand spirit may have left his worn-out body, but he has entered into the hearts and minds of millions of us who will forever be grateful to have been educated by his commitment to the truth. God bless you, Jack Hare. The message that Jack and I have is that your younger generation are open to perils to which he and I never had to conceive. That there is a great move afoot to take you out of the property of sovereign human beings and put you into the property of the man. The man. The petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, fascist, elite son of a bitches. Who see the Constitution and the Bill of Rights as impediments to the implementation of their new world order and global economy. And they are not warm and fuzzy about you or me or our children or grandchildren. And they are afraid to give everybody in the rest of the world due process and constitutional rights. So in order to make it one world, they're going to take ours away. And the question of hemp, the question of cannabis, is the most vivid illustration of how this government has overstepped its bounds in policing the private behavior of citizens. When they told us we couldn't plant a hemp seed in the ground, they severed us from the natural cycle. That is what they seek to do. I call it the synthetic subversion, where they want to replace all the natural products on earth that used to be grown out of God's earth and God's seed, and replace them with synthetic products and knocked our farmer out of the agrarian society and the agrarian market and made the ghost towns of our small cities and villages across this country. We need to rediscover a cash crop, one that will allow our farmers to go back to the land, one that will allow our farmers to compete with the petrochemical pipelines. You plant U.S. 7% agricultural land in hemp, You wouldn't have to import another drop of oil. We can replace the spills in the Gulf. We can replace the environmental catastrophe that the petroleum pipelines have cast upon Mother Earth, and instead let our farmers grow hemp as a fuel crop. In 1991, Willie Nelson and I poured hemp oil into my Mercedes diesel and drove it across Kentucky in my bid for governor. That's why he started his biofuel plant. Listen, folks, you all have been handed a torch. Jack Hare, bless his soul, passed away. I'm getting old up here. You know, we cannot carry this ball much longer. You have to become educated. You have to learn the truth. You have to reach out there and grab the responsibility of maintaining your freedom. Every generation must re-win its own freedoms. And those very sacrifices, right up to the very last second I've been talking to you, made on your behalf, cannot continue anymore. What really counts is your all's commitment to what sacrifices you're willing to make in the future to maintain your freedom. And it's right there in front of you. I encourage you to learn the law. I encourage you to learn the political process. I encourage you to reach out there and take responsibility for your own freedom. Live your life like a warrior. God bless you all. Thanks for having me out here in Seattle.
A group is setting out to promote the use of medical marijuana, something we've heard before, but this time there's sort of a twist to this. They're targeting South Florida's senior citizens. As CBS 4's Cynthia Demas reports, they're starting with controversial billboards on Sample Road in Broward County, and they don't plan to stop there.
This is the first billboard in question. Take a look right here. It says, legalize medical marijuana. I'm a patient, not a criminal, and it focuses on the elderly.
For me, for my family, I don't like. Marijuana is a gateway drug.
Down the road, another billboard that says, reschedule medical marijuana, one of the safest therapeutically active substances known to man.
I don't like it. I think it's ridiculous.
We went to the source behind the ads, 69-year-old Robert Platshorn. He spent 30 years in prison for smuggling marijuana, a substance he doesn't think should be illegal. He doesn't want others sent to prison for what he calls not committing a crime. So he's trying to make medical marijuana legal.
The billboard was a way of bringing attention to a cause.
In the 4 years he's been out of prison, he started his cause, the Silver Tour, to promote the legalization of marijuana for seniors.
They have the time, the inclination, and the need.
Irvin Rosenfeld is one of his biggest supporters.
It's different this time because the population's gotten older.
59-year-old Rosenfeld is a stockbroker in Fort Lauderdale and one of the 4 people in the United States with the medical okay from the federal government to smoke marijuana.
So I'm living proof that the medicine works tremendously.
In fact, for 29 years, the government's paid for his marijuana. The 10 to 12 joints a day, he says, helps control his bone tumors, and it saved his life.
It can help millions and millions of people.
Tens of thousands of people will see these billboards every day for a month. The 2 billboards cost a total of $5,000, but the Silver Tour doesn't stop there. Platshorn also does speaking engagements, and before he went to prison, he was a pitchman selling things like knives and other items on TV. So he's putting together a 30-minute infomercial, mixing his talents with his passion to get his message across to America. I'm Cynthia Demas in Broward County, CBS 4 News.
The way that we framed it was that there was no current evidence that occasional use, moderate use, which some would call recreational use, of marijuana by basically psychologically healthy people was harmful.
The recommendation of the Commission in its first report is that we do not feel that private use or private possession in one's own home should have the stigma of criminalization, that people who experiment should not be criminalized for that particular behavior.
Eventually, we had endorsements from the American Bar Association, from the American Medical Association, from the American Public Health Association, the National Education Association. I'm sure there were many, many others. But mainstream institutions in American society said, yes, this is the right way to go about dealing with this problem. And eventually, over the period from 1973 to 1977, you had 12 states that actually did adopt the Commission's recommendation and decriminalized.
President Nixon just wasn't happy with the Schaefer Commission's findings.
No, he wasn't, because he had appointed a number of conservatives to the commission, expecting that they would give him information that would justify his calling for a war on drugs. But instead, they came back and recommended decriminalizing marijuana. He did not expect that, nor did he expect that so many of the country's experts and professional associations would agree with that recommendation.
I think we have a question from our audience. Yeah.
Yes, exactly what does decriminalization mean?
The term decriminalization typically means that you don't get arrested, you don't wind up with any sort of criminal record. And in some states, there can be no penalty whatsoever for the private possession of small amounts of marijuana by adults. In other states, you might have to pay a civil fine like you would for a parking ticket.
You know, there was a prior study back in 1938. Mayor LaGuardia of New York commissioned this study on marijuana because he had been acquainted with an Army study while he was in the House of Representatives. And in 1944, that study was published saying that, in fact, marijuana was a relatively harmless substance.
So twice in recent history, back in the 40s and then with Nixon, politicians have taken information and discarded it and put out false information on marijuana to further their political needs. What happens to the legal system when something like this goes on?
Well, the result is a loss of respect for the law. And Mayor LaGuardia understood that when he worked so hard for the repeal of prohibition.
Prohibition cannot be enforced for the simple reason that the majority of American people do not want it enforced and are resisting its enforcement. That being so, the orderly thing to do under our form of government is to abolish a law which cannot be enforced, a law which the people of the country do not want enforced.
In the 1980s, "just say no" became the new phrase of an old propaganda campaign. But it wasn't just Republicans beating the drum of war. In 1986, Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill, a Democrat, saw getting tough on crime as a means for his party to win the upcoming elections.
In the 1980s, I was the attorney in the U.S. House of Representatives, principally responsible for writing the drug laws. In the only time in my 10 years at the House of Representatives, we had a bill that we were considering that had never been introduced. There were no hearings. There was no expert input from the Justice Department, from the federal judges, from the Bureau of Prisons. We were literally flying blind. And this legislation ended up creating long mandatory minimums of 10 years mandatory up to life imprisonment, when the prior maximum had been 20 years. To say that you deserve up to a year in prison to possess marijuana, that is, to possess it for the purpose of using it, is preposterous. It's totally unjust. How these sentences get imposed is completely random on one hand, and on the other is very much related to what your social class or race is. These laws fundamentally fail the test of justice. As I look back on it, as 30 years as a lawyer, this has been, if this were intentional, this would be the most shameful thing I could imagine somebody doing as a lawyer. It's terrible. It's terrible to live with. That's why, it's critically important, I think, that people like me speak out and say, these laws are wrong. They're counterproductive. They're unjust.
I live in a state that passed a medical marijuana law in the late 90s. My partner and I care for people living with AIDS, and part of that care is providing them with marijuana. Having a warrant served is one of the scariest things that I've ever experienced. Having the battering ram at the door at dawn, jumping out of bed, opening the door, seeing the police there, swarming into the house, handcuffing us while we watched them tear our house apart. we live in fear of losing everything again.
I was in my last year of law school and I was convicted of a federal marijuana felony. I had to plead guilty in a plea bargain. I had a house arrest sentence and 5 years probation. I will not be able to run for public office. I have 2 wonderful kids. I will need to explain to them why I can't vote for the rest of my life, why we can't cross the border. I feel like I have a brand for the rest of my life, and I can't get rid of it.
I spent 26 years in the New Jersey State Police. 14 of those years I was undercover in narcotics. As a former police officer, I believe that the prohibition of marijuana is one of the most ridiculous abuses of our allocation of police staff and money that we could possibly have. We could be allocating our resources toward protecting folks from violent criminals, from child molesters, from drunk drivers, people who are going to kill people. People who are using marijuana are not violent people. Ask any cop whether they would rather go on a call where they know people are high on marijuana or whether they would rather go on a call where people are high on alcohol. They'll choose marijuana every time.
In 2005, the Sentencing Project, a national research organization focused on sentencing laws and incarceration, issued a report that looked at the war on drugs during the 1990s. We talked to one of its authors about their findings.
What was so surprising that came out of this study was to find the level of resources that were dedicated to pursuing low-level marijuana offenses. I think conventional wisdom across the country is that our drug war is going after importers, and high-level dealers, distributors, and that the federal system, which is designed specifically to bring the rich natural resources to bear upon international and high-level drug trafficking, that in fact, very large proportion of these resources were being funneled towards low-level drug users and people in possession of primarily marijuana. In fact, what the war on drugs really looks like is shaking down kids in the street, grabbing people pulled over on the side of the road, and finding very, very small quantities of marijuana, bringing them into the system, filling out paperwork, a couple of hours of law enforcement time dedicated to paperwork. And I think that most Americans have no idea that that is where their very precious resources are being directed.
American farmers are losing their farms at a frightening rate. For generations, this land and the occupations that it provided were handed down from father to son. And over the years, laws passed by legislators have eroded this heritage. The government and our nation's banking system are slowly becoming this country's sole farm owners. So in order to turn the tide, the American farmer needs a successful cash crop. Now, hemp is a plant that's proven to be versatile in creating over 50,000 products, from cloth and paper to fuel and medicine. And when prohibition was leveled against liquor, it was still legal to grow corn and grapes for other purposes. Now, this should be true of hemp. Return our roots to America and help re-legalize hemp.
If you are looking for a doctor to help you get medical marijuana, or you want to get involved in our petition drive to end adult marijuana prohibition, call us here in Portland at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. That number right down there on your screen. Or look us up at hemp.org. That's H-E-M-P. I want to thank you, Michael.
They work for us.
Thank you, Casper. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Paul. And thank you, John and Jansu. We're going to go out with their wonderful music once again and help us restore hemp. Good night. baby.